This episode was recorded live on our behind the scenes show on October 30th. Remember, we have a live show coming up in Portland. You can come in person or watch and interact and ask questions live with a virtual ticket. You don't have to be there in person. Details are coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Welcome to Behind the Scenes, the show that we do normally every Friday at noon Pacific, but today we're doing a special one on Wednesday, and we are joined once again by Katie Walsh, who is first of all, director of Simone versus Herself, secondly, director of Simone Biles Rising on Netflix, and newly Critics' Choice nominee. Yes. Critics' Choice Award.
Thank
welcome.
You.
Thank you for being back.
Happy to be here with you guys. I always look forward to this conversation because I know we're gonna talk about like other stuff that's
we're gonna get into it.
Yeah, we're gonna get gymnasticy.
So welcome if you're joining for the first time. We are recording this live. This is our special Q&A that we do for our Club Gym Nerd members who support us and allow us to do things like take, an afternoon off to be in Texas and do an interview for the Simone Biles documentary. Because I remember when I used to have to plan all of my vacation around gymnastics so I could do all my vacation days were gymnastics trips. And now it's my job. Thank you, Club Gym Nerd members. So if you don't know how to add this podcast to your favorite podcast player, instructions in the show notes are always in the forum. And okay, let's begin. Because you're the most prepared, and so you already have prepared what you want to talk about.
I have notes. I made bunches of notes. Where do you want me to read you my notes, or do you want to ask questions?
Okay, let's start with questions.
We'll start with questions.
Yes.
Okay. One thing we talked
Spencer.
about when we were talking about
Spencer
the documentary.
freeze? Oh, Spencer just froze. But it's hilarious how he froze.
I'm just fine.
You can hear him? Oh, he's good. Okay.
All right.
I can't hear him. Okay, go ahead,
One thing
Spencer.
we talked about was the focus on team final, all-around final. And and Simone had said, my goals are team and all-around and not what happened in event final. So kind of what went into that decision, I guess.
Yes. I knew you guys were going to take issue with that because you're my gymnastics hardcore.
Because Jessica's event finals are the most important one.
Of course. I knew it. I totally understand and sympathize with it. There's only so many events you can really show in one episode without it feeling almost like a little too repetitive, and now we're back and we were winning and then we're back and now we're winning and then we're back. And so we had to pick. Had she said to me, my most important event is vault final, I need that gold, then that's the one we would have built to.
Right.
But she didn't, she was the one that offered up team and all around. And, all around was really kind of the climax of that whole episode. So it's to then go all the way there and be so up and then be like, oh, and now let's go back to competition again. It's just too many competitions to get into one. I need more time, I need more episodes. So we went, I try to follow Simone's lead, and she's the one that, those were the events that were most important to her. So that's where we went.
And we had a listener question related to that about the thought process in building a narrative of a sporting event when people already know what happens. And how do you make it interesting and tell that story when most of the people watch the Olympics and know that Simone won?
100%. So for me, what I tried to do is fill in the gaps of the moments in between for her. Yes, we all saw what happened on the competition floor, on the broadcast this past summer, but what we didn't see were all the moments in between, the interaction between Simone and her family in the stands, the stuff that's just really focused specifically on Simone and Simone's experience. So that was where I tried to elevate the experience of what this was like, because now you're seeing it from Simone's perspective, whether that's being with Nelly, even, the day of all around, or, I love the way that she and Jonathan would communicate while he was up in the stands. So just trying to lean into some of those things to help fill in the gaps from what is actually just happening on the competition floor.
Speaking of the extra extended version with all the bloopers and all the finals, is there any chance, as a promotional thing, even I have many ideas for Netflix, but as a like, oh, here's the bloopers episode, here's the extra footage, that anything like that?
I mean, you're the first one to suggest it. Obviously, I'm on board. I'll start pulling together the reels, and we'll see what they say. So fine by me. There's hours of footage, and Simone, she's amazing. So there's plenty there.
I mean, gymnastics and bloopers. There's got to be just 10 hours of footage of someone tripping over a mat in the gym.
Yeah. Oh, well, especially, yes. Well, you know what? Actually, I loved what you said about how in so much of the practice footage, Simone is sitting. I laughed out loud with that because I didn't even realize that. Like, that wasn't something I consciously did. It's just how she is, like she paces herself, she finds space, and she makes sure she like is not, exerting herself when she doesn't need to be. So yeah, that's just naturally what she was doing.
I also love that the practice footage where she is like, Cecile's telling her, yeah, you're going to lose a 10th on dance. Like, and
There you.
that was the best. Like, don't lose a 10th on dance. It was just it was the most gymnasticsy, like, Cecile moment ever. I enjoyed that very much.
Totally.
We were very interested about like how you chose the moments to have her talk about the haters and read the mean tweets, and she does this, and then in the tour there's a whole mean tweets part, and I'm like, how maybe she puts earplugs in or just tunes it out every night for the tour, but how did you decide when to have her read those, and how do you like when is the right time in the cycle of competition and her mental health and all that stuff?
Yes, I'm glad you're asking this question because I put a lot of thought into it. We wanted to bring in social media as essentially like a character in the film, because especially when it comes to a conversation around mental health, social media plays a big role in everyone's mental health. And Simone is, that's definitely part of her journey, is trying to figure out how to balance all of the opinions that you just receive, and the criticism and the support, but all the noise. And, she's on her phone, she's checking that stuff. Like, she's not someone that doesn't look at it. So we wanted to bring it in, and then we wanted to, like, there's one social media moment where she's scrolling and reading tweets about her in each of the 4 episodes. And so we looked for the conversations that had been loud or had either, influenced her or impacted her in one way or another. In episode 3, that was the conversation around Jonathan, which, it was hard to ignore because it was pretty loud last year. And, but I definitely thought long and hard about when we did those and how we did them. The first 2 that were in episodes 1 and 2, we were able to do, sort of in the off season, because, that's when we were filming the majority of those episodes. But episode 3 was filmed in season. And, that's not an easy conversation to have. So the process would be that I would go through and collect a bunch of tweets, and my team would go through and we'd find tweets, and they were both negative, positive, kind of ridiculous. And we put a collection together, and then she would read them all, or the ones that stood out to her. She could scroll through and select the ones. And that Jonathan one in particular, I think we recorded it in like July. I mean, in it. And I remember I was very nervous about it. But to Simone's credit, she was totally open and fine with it. I feel like part of it is that she's really secure in who she is, and she's really secure in her relationship with Jonathan, and that, she kind of just, she reads it all anyway. So it was almost like it's, in a way we're like making fun and mocking the absurdity of it all, and how ridiculous some of those comments were and what people said. And when we recorded that, Jonathan was in the room. So it was me, my Jessica, and Simone and Jonathan in the room. And she's reading these absurd, ridiculous tweets about him that, there's just no other way it's when you break it down and you just kind of read it, it takes the power out of it, because it's just so dumb,
Yes.
It's so ridiculous, but she was really good about it. And, I definitely thought about it a lot, because I don't want to do anything to just, especially throw her off in those months that were most important and most intense. But yeah, to Simone's credit, she was terrific about it. So, and Jonathan too. I mean, he had to just sit there and like listen to it. And, they both are so, they've worked through that stuff. I feel like by the time we get to them, they're like, all right, whatever. She just went off, like that whole conversation about her just being like, what, I mean, that's just her being her, and giving her a chance to kind of say what she felt and speak up.
I did like how much we got of Simone being Simone in episodes 3 and 4, like with Jonathan throwing out the first pitch. It's just so Simone, and a side of her you don't often get to see.
Totally. Throwing it in the dirt, being on the fails list. Like, she's so funny and sarcastic. And, to know Simone is to love that about her, because that's totally who she is. And she teases everyone and everyone teases her, and it's just fun and funny. And I think Jonathan likes it too. And, no one takes it seriously. So I was happy that we saw those sides of Simone too. And I'm glad that you guys picked up on that too, because especially like that moment in the hotel room getting ready for competition. I mean, that was I was like, I'm just going to lean against this wall as if I'm wallpaper. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to breathe. Like we were there. We were strictly observational. We didn't do or get in the way at all. And I was so grateful to Simone for letting us in for that moment, because it's not really a moment I'm there for that often. To tell you the truth, like, it's not something that I didn't film that multiple times. That was one of the very few times I got to be there that close to competition and just be an observer. But that moment was so real and honest. And, it's exactly how I would be in the moments before going out, if I were to ever go and compete, which I'm not. But, and I would be like that with my husband, or, like, because you just be like, stop, don't talk to me. Like, I don't want to hear it, like, zip it. And it was just so real and true. And I'm so grateful that she not only allowed us to be there, but then was totally fine with us using it, didn't have notes or feedback or anything like that, and just allowed herself to be exactly who she is at all times. And I think by showing that moment where maybe she's not totally perfect and on her game and acting the way that you want her to act, or, I don't know, that you're expecting someone to act, it actually made her so much more real and relatable and like a human being. And I love her that much more for it. So that was a big scene for me. I was really happy with that scene.
Going back, we had a question from Scott that came up. And so it was about, Scott said, wait, I have a nerdy question. What technology let Simone scroll through the tweets as if they were in front of her?
So we used an iDirect. And Scott, I will give you the whole setup if you need. We used an iDirect, and then you have an iPad inside the iDirect. And we actually had the iPad on like a very slow scroll, so that it wasn't her moving it. But an iDirect is the camera, so that you're actually seeing what, like if I were sitting behind it as the interviewer, you'd be seeing my face, but it's directly in front of the lens, so that you're looking straight in the lens. You'll see it in a lot of documentaries where the camera, the interviews are straight on. But instead of putting my image in the lens, we put the iPad image in the lens, so that it was just scrolling slowly up right in front of her. And she was able to read them in real time and react to them in real time while looking right at the lens. So we tried to do, part of the idea behind this film was that there's the outside world that looks in and comes up with their vision of who Simone is and, what she's all about. And then there's the way that she's perceiving the world around her. And it's like from the inside out. So with that social media moment, there was 2 different moments. You would see her either scrolling on her phone in a car, and all the tweets would pop up. And that was sort of like the outside world looking in at her and making those judgments. And then you would see her physically scrolling and taking in the information and reacting to it. And that's meant to be her, like her personal experience with that social media. So that was the thought process behind that.
See, Katie's a professional filmmaker, Jessica. Their thought process, they're important thought processes that you don't cognitively pick up on necessarily, but then when you explain it, you're like, oh yeah, obviously.
That totally makes sense. Oh, I realize that.
Do you think one of my big impressions was how connected Simone is to her support base that's there at the Olympics for her, and how influential that must have been in Tokyo? not having them there, and how influential that must have been on the twisties.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, you see it. I mean, she's talking to her parents. She's talking to Jonathan from the stands. Her mom and dad are just there always. Their presence is so strong, and you see them all the time. She knows exactly where they're sitting. Like there's a constant communication going on between them. That, it's more than just they're sitting there somewhere. Like she knows exactly where they are. In fact, Nellie said at Worlds, I tried to get this on camera, but I couldn't, that Simone couldn't find her in the stands. So Nellie put the light on her phone and then held it up so that Simone could find the light in the stands. I mean, it's a big deal to her, and it's important. And you can see in those moments of interaction how much she looks to them. And there's no way to underestimate the power of having your family, having your community, having your support system present. These athletes, as amazing as they are as individuals, it's a team in that there's so many people that go into creating that support, and not having that in Tokyo. I think, obviously in hindsight too, you really see how impactful that was. But I do think, and I like that you pointed that out, that the contrast of seeing them here really, it only emphasizes how important that community has been to her throughout her whole career and her whole life.
I mean, Nellie was showing up at the 540 for the birthday.
By the way, I went back and checked because I was like, what was that? That seems earlier than usual, because practice usually starts at 7. So I think we were there earlier for her birthday that year. I don't think we were always there that early, but you after your conversation, I went back and looked at my notes, and I was like, oh yeah,
I was confused as well.
Earlier. Yeah, because usually it's 7. So usually they're there at like 6:30 or something like that.
Okay.
So maybe we were just a little early that day.
7 is a much more reasonable hour.
It's still too early.
It's way too early, but still to have to function. Speaking of Tokyo, we had a listener who commented this. It's interesting how it was all men in the film, Yugo Jamil Hill, criticizing her Tokyo decision and downplaying the mental aspects. So they wanted to know, was this happenstance the way that you chose who to show, or was it literally all men who were crapping on her?
In the television realm, it was, I don't remember even seeing a woman criticize her. I remember only seeing men. I think it's one of those things that while we didn't set out to do that, it is the reality of what was going on, and the reality of these, middle-aged men who know nothing about the sport, nothing about gymnastics, and nothing about the experience of being a woman or a woman of color on an Olympic stage, just making a decision to automatically make a snap judgment based on zero information or knowledge. And when you stack them up and you start to see them next to each other, it only emphasizes how absurd and how unqualified those people were to make a comment.
Unqualified. That's right. That's an opportunity to use my buzzer. That was excellent.
Our next question from a listener was about the scene, about the short bit about the creepy commentators, and how you just, very attractive 15-year-old and all of that, and how you decided how much of that to put in versus let's not overdo it.
Well, if you watch, we go into that a bit in episode 2, right? And just the culture of gymnastics. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I was building on that in 3, even though those 2 episodes, for anyone that's watching in a timely fashion, they're watching 1 and 2 in July, 3 and 4 in October, but there's going to be people out there that haven't seen any of it and will watch all 4 together. And so to me, I felt like that, it was an opportunity to build on and kind of keep collecting the arguments of why the culture of gymnastics was creepy and inappropriate. And especially then when you see how young the gymnasts were when they were in the night, like the Dominiques of the world that were 14. And then you hear these comments, but the reality is too, that I didn't have to search hard for that one comment. It wasn't like one that I cherry picked out and there were never any others.
There are a lot of,
there's a lot to choose from out there. So it did feel like it was just a, one example that was representative of an era for gymnastics. And I wanted to make sure it was in for that reason.
Yeah, I think it was really good. That was a perfect one because he states her age and then, you know, yeah, so gross. What was it like for you, especially this Olympics, because of how, I mean, Antwerp was really bad with how small the arena floor was. But I didn't see camera people actually hitting the athletes with their cameras, even though it was way smaller than the Paris floor. So what was it like being in that scenario and being a filmmaker and seeing Simone be hit over and over by these cameras?
Well, it's crazy because we were on the perimeter. We weren't actually allowed on the proper floor itself. But there were a lot of cameras out there. I mean, it's not for, and, to your point, I think you said yesterday, Simone's obviously very petite, and these are like big camera people, and they're like really crowding in and close, and it's still tight quarters out there. So when you have 3 or 4 people and they've got all their camera wires, and I mean, it's just a lot to manage. And you're also trying, everyone of course is trying to do their job to the best of their ability and follow whatever the storyline is. And obviously Simone or Team USA was often very much in the mix on the storyline. So it just naturally leads to this environment where there are so many people kind of clustered around her and her teammates. There were many times where, just me filming from the walls, I couldn't find her in the mix. I'd be like looking through the lens, trying to capture her. And I was like, I have no shot because there are 3 or 4 people in front of me between me and the camera. And, I don't know any other sport where that happens. I can't think of another example, another Olympic, like figure skating, they go in the kiss and cry after. No one's, there's like a designated spot where you go and there's a safe space and there's perimeters. And, I just can't think of another example where you see that like really close interaction between the cameras and the athletes. And, I don't know, we've got great lenses and ways to get close without being that close all the time. So is it necessary, or could there be fewer people? Possibly. But, it's, I think it's very intimidating, especially Simone's really used to it, right? That's just, I don't think she even thinks about it, but, I'm sure it's really intimidating and could be, sort of scary for some of the athletes that maybe aren't as used to it.
Mm.
Another
listener question was there anything you left on the cutting room floor that you wish people could see?
It's funny. I should go back and look through all. I keep notes every time I shoot of everything. And sure, there's, there's moments, but I don't feel like we left behind anything that I am heartsick over.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I really wanted to be in here were here. And there's certainly funny moments. There's great sound. Every interview, as Jessica knows, I'm not known for short, concise interviews. So there's many good sound bites that I could use from, everyone that I interviewed. And there's great moments with Simone because she's just so funny and real. And, we tried to make sure we had like the best of the best. There's always stuff that gets left behind, but there's nothing that I'm like regretful of, where I'm like, oh, if only we had gotten in X, Y, and Z, which in all honesty, I'm pretty proud of that, because that's, usually you do kind of lose a couple, of those real gems in the way. And I feel like we got the essence of her and the essence of some of those great moments in one way or another.
And you got to include "Out on the Streets, I'm Young."
Yes, right? I know. That bite, when she said that, our audio person, Ryan, who we're all very good friends with, and Simone as well, started laughing out loud to the point where we had to stop rolling. We had to stop. We had to totally shut down and reset because we were all cracking up. She's so, that's just the best thing about Simone. That interview where she says that was Wednesday of trials week. Super intense, stressful time that's not necessarily light and, the place where you're going to find all those moments of levity. And that was just her being her and, just being fun and finding fun moments. And we had such a good time in that interview. And it's amazing to me that, just among like such an intense week that she was able to go there.
I mean, if there were other moments that, like, if I had a full social media team who was doing a marketing campaign on this, I might make some memes and GIFs out of that because I'm obsessed with it. And also, maybe there's a good, like, badass women do what they want moment, which also.
I was sorry to get that bite in. I love that bite so much. And it's so perfect and it's so Simone. And yeah, that was one that was on the top of the list to make sure it found its home in the film.
I'm so glad.
Honestly, one of the interesting things about, we laugh about Simone being like out on the streets, I'm young, but I've seen a lot of gymnasts over the years be asked like, but you're not actually old. You're very young. Yeah. I've never seen anyone respond like Simone did. It's always like, well, in gymnastics, it's different, the ages. And Simone's like, no, I get it. Like, you feel like she gets it in a way that a lot of other gymnasts, because of everything they have to deal with, don't really see that from the outside.
Totally. And, I think, she is 27. She has a life outside of the sport. She has friends that are not gymnasts. She has, a whole life that happens that is not necessarily centered around gymnastics. And, not only does that, I think, help her in the gym, but it just, it gives her some perspective that, maybe she didn't, or anyone that's like, 16, 17, 18, they don't have, because their whole world is wrapped up in the sport at that time. But she is able to, sort of look at it with from that 10,000 foot view and recognize that, yes, okay, I know in this gym here, I am the oldest and I feel that way. But when I go out with my girlfriends, on Friday night, like, that's definitely not how I feel. So she's able to see that and, recognize that. So
see the ridiculous elements of the sport.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, how Simone that's one of the things that we love about it, right? How often she called out the absurdities, like just posting herself eating pizza as if that's like groundbreaking and, just living her life and being a normal person. And that's something that she has given to this sport by showing people that you can do, things that are relatively normal to the average human and still be, the superhuman she is out there on the floor.
We had a question from a listener here.
Were you ever concerned about Simone's security? She made a comment on social media that she couldn't go to the cafeteria.
Yeah. So that was, it was hard for her in Paris. And I know we talked about that, or you guys talked about that, and we did in the film, but, you think you're going into this world where it's all athletes and it's a safe space because, everyone's like you, but the reality is no one's like Simone, and everybody wants to meet her. Everybody wants the picture. Everyone wants a pin. Everyone wants something. And that includes all the athletes. They're so excited. And, it's coming from a genuine place of just genuinely being excited to be around her and meet her. And, she stands out because she's so petite, and it's just hard to, you're like, who's that cute little short person? And then you're like, oh my God, that's Simone Biles. And everybody wants to meet her. And that's just, it wasn't any different in the Olympic Village. So, she stopped going to the cafeteria. We went with her like the first day or two. And then after that, she stopped going because it just was like one more place where she had to be on and, do all the things you have to do. And like, you just need some downtime. You need a break. And as far as being nervous about her security, she had a really good security team. So once like we were done, for instance, once she was done competing and we went out and spent like a day in Paris and did all that fun stuff, we had like very, very strong, large bodyguards with us at all times and blocking the way. So, I wasn't, because I felt like there were lots of people around her that knew way more than I did about how to make sure she was safe and secure. But, in general, it can be a scary thing, and everyone knows where she is at those 2 weeks. So, you do think about that.
Mm-hmm. We have a question about Simone being an outlier from one of our listeners who says, I'm rewatching the beginning of Simone Rising because the new episodes won't load. I'm definitely handling like a champion and not waking up the kids yelling at the TV. Anywho, Questions you can't possibly answer, but I would like you to pontificate on regardless, which is what we do. I remember something somewhere, Allie Raceman saying she couldn't eat her favorite gummy bears because of the anti-inflammatory diet, professional athlete diet. Yet here I am watching Simone drinking mimosas, #Mark safe from scurvy, and sparkling wine, etc. To be clear, I'm all in on adults having wine as they please, but is this another example of how much of a genetic outlier Simone is? Like Allie, who is a genetic super freak in her own right, can't eat gummy bears without it affecting her performance, and here's Simone tossing back wine and still dominating everyone.
Well, to be fair, she didn't drink in those, like she went dry for like those couple months leading up to the Olympics and through the Olympics. So she often would drink like a cocktail, non-alcoholic cocktail. And I know people would be like, wait, you're drinking. And she's like, no, it's just, OJ. And so, there is that component where she was, not just totally living completely as she might on another time. But then, of course, she is like, genetically special because she's Simone Biles. And, of course she is. She's amazing. And she puts in all the work and all the time. And but she's also just, very gifted as an athlete and a human. So I think it's a little bit of both. She did change her routine leading up to the games, but also, she's Simone.
I want to be respectful of your time because I know we planned 30 minutes, but are you okay? Do you have to go?
No, I'm fine.
Good. Yay. Okay. What was that last? Okay. From Goldburn.
Why wasn't Joss in episodes 3 and 4? Her talking heads were great in the first 2 episodes.
She was so good. There's no like in particular reason. She just played more in 3 and 4, obviously with Worlds and her being there. There was a lot more of the two of them together. And, we just tried to have different interviews and different voices throughout. So not, some people, Ollie had some bites in the beginning and the end, but, and also love Ollie too. But for the most part, we tried to like kind of just advance the story and bring in different voices. And, there were so many people that I wanted to include and have in there. So there's just only so much time in each episode. So but she was awesome in 1 and 2, and I adore Joss. So I could do a whole film on her too.
Oh my God. Was the place that you interviewed Lori the actual Sopranos? How
cool was that space? That was in Minneapolis at Trials. It was a hotel that my production manager found, and they had like a speakeasy on the lower level below the dining area in the hotel. And that's what it looked like. And we just walked, I did nothing. We walked, well, obviously it's Jessica, but like she lit it and made it beautiful, but it was all like that. And it all looked like that. And it was and then of course she came in the perfect shirt that complemented it. And it was as if we totally planned that. Of course we totally. But it just looked awesome. And then Lori is Lori. So she's the best interview ever. And
oh my God.
Lori's one that, we just had to really pick and choose our sound bites because there were so many to work with. And she's so good and so articulate and thoughtful and knowledgeable, and just had a lot of insight and things to add.
Yeah. I could listen to Lori talk like all day long. Oh my God, I love that so much. Also, for you guys, Jessica we've talked about her before. She's the DP, the director of photography, the one that I always talk about who looks like she's a war correspondent, war photographer in a actual war zone who is ready for anything with the knee pads and all of that. Yes.
Always with the knee pads. She puts them on right away. Every time we're at Simone's gym, wherever we are, she's always got the knee pads on. And I mean, it's brilliant because then she can easily move and maneuver and anticipate and, be ready for every shot. Like, can you imagine if you were like, wait, hold on, Simone, before you do that bar routine, let me get my knee pads on. Like, no, she's just there and ready. And she captures it all. And, yes. And then some. There's stuff that I see later and I'm like, oh, was I there for that? Did that happen? How did I miss that? She's so intuitive and she's always paying attention and she finds all the shots.
I feel very safe whenever I see her. I'm like, someone here is ready for anything. That is what makes me feel good. Also, can I appreciate she's so ready because there are those times when a photographer is just not prepared for what the situation is going to be, especially in gymnastics. and they are not wearing the appropriate attire, and there's a butt crack situation, and you just can't be having your butt crack out when you're a professional on the competition floor. So, yeah.
And we would I mean, you know, so I filmed the second camera, which I called, instead of the B cam, the B- cam. And we would strategize. Like we'd sit, during the Olympics, we'd be before competition in one of those trailers, you know, in the back with all the camera crews and everything. And we would draw out the venue, draw all the camera positions. I'd be like, she'd be 1, I'd be 2, or A and B or whatever. And we would write not only where we were going to be for each part, but how we would get there and when we would move. And it was like a real coordinated dance that, and we had it planned to a degree, like even to the extent of knowing what lenses we were going to have at different times. Or she carried 2 cameras around. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jess, but she had 2 of these gigantic cameras. She was single hand on each one so that she could have one always in slow motion and one always in real speed. And she would carry both and then go between them so that she didn't have to take the time to reset.
That's genius.
She's genius. She said to me, she was like, I see these still photographers, they're all walking around with 2 cameras. She's like, why can't I have 2 cameras? So she was like, I'm just going to do it. And she, when you see the moment where Simone goes over to Cecile in qualifications and says, I just tore my calf muscle all the way. Jess was shooting, if you're watching it, she's shooting off speed for the warm up. So you see the triple double in slow motion. You see Simone walking. It's like really slow. You see her face and she makes that expression that she's never made before, where she kind of bit her lip and you knew something was off. But we're listening. So then as soon as she came over and said to Cecile, I just tore my calf, you see this jumble of the camera. It's Jessica putting down the slow motion and picking up the real time and then getting in, because she was like, this is a story moment. So that's the genius of Jessica.
Seriously. I have brought her up for years because I'm obsessed with her. But also, like, I like that moment of like blah, 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 camera, because then you realize, oh shit, something's happening. So 100%. I love that you left that in there.
And that's what was going on. We were both going, oh shit, something's happening.
Yeah.
Also that, wait, sorry, that question. Go ahead. From Karen.
Karen said, can you talk more about the premiere and your experience there?
Oh, the premiere was awesome. I mean, it was so just to be able to have that experience and have Simone be able to be in that, you know, because we did the whole film, obviously, and she's kind of busy, right? And so she doesn't get to like enjoy the fruits of that effort. And so this was like a really moment to celebrate her and all that she accomplished, her story as a whole, and, you know, just the film that is great because she's great, you know, and because she's so great in it. And so just to see that all come together, and there were so many people that were able to come, you know, obviously, like you noted, I invited everyone that was in the film, and I wanted as many people that participated to be there as possible, and just to share in it, because it's such a team effort, and every voice in there was so important to the overall product. So yeah, it was really exciting. And then I think also one of my favorite parts was when it was all over and I could look back and be like, okay, that happened. And, you know, it was all good. And I didn't trip and nothing weird, you know, like there's like, you know, even though it's definitely about Simone, I didn't want to do something dumb. And so I was very happy when it all kind of panned out and was all good. And, you know, and it was just great to be there and see her get all that recognition. And yeah, it was awesome. It was so fun. And I think it was great for the sport too, just for such a positive way of celebrating gymnastics and all that it's, you know, kind of evolved into.
Yep. Lord Waffles is here.
Did you capture Simone performing a skill we would be surprised by? She's the GOAT and nothing surprises me, but I'm still curious.
Well, she, and I had sort of, I think teased this once before, but she was working on a skill on bars that she, you know, she put in for in case she went to the finals. So I'd seen her practicing that in the months leading up, and knew that was sort of like a possibility. And so it would have been great if she could have done that and just given it a go. But you know, it wasn't meant to be. So that's the one that I remember kind of being like, ooh, this is like a little secret in the back pocket here. Like, will this or will this not ever be public, you know? So I'm glad that, you know, just by the fact that you had to put in, you know, your intentions of what you might compete, you know, you kind of got to see that was something she was working on.
Yeah. But we did get her doing a triple double and being like the easy stuff, like a triple double.
Like, first, the easy
warm up, the chill stuff. Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
I mean, that's the most Simone thing ever, right?
Jill says,
putting Katie in the "you just won a gold, what's next" hot seat. What's next, Katie? You've got a whole new fan base here.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's a good question. I am figuring it out. I have some options, which is a privilege, to say the least, as a filmmaker, to have options and just feel like I have a couple choices. So I'm actively figuring it out. I'll probably know in the next couple of weeks, but and I'll let you know as soon as I can. But thank you. I appreciate the support.
I also, going back to the moment about talking about when you knew like Simone landed that triple double when she pulled her calf again and had that look on her face. I was just flashing back to all the photos we have from Simone from the time she was 14, 15, 16, where in the middle of her teens, which she still does to this day, makes a face that makes it so clear that she's done something she did not. And that's another idea for my like Supercuts gifts. All the Simone faces.
Oh, she's got so many good facial expressions. And that's, I mean, it's just, you know, what I love about Simone is, and I've said it so many times before, but what you see is what you get. And she's so honest and real, and you know, and the same way, like if I were to ask a question and it's not really sitting well with her, like I would know within a hot second, because I'd be like, oh nope, that's not
we're not doing that one.
That look, like and I was like, okay, we're moving on. But you know, another point to that moment where she went over to Cecile, and you mentioned how calm Cecile looked, and I remember thinking that in the moment. I was like, whoa, Cecile looks totally chill, because I was not totally chill, and I know Jessica was not totally chill. Cecile told me that she her Apple Watch kept the heartbeat thing, kept saying like your heartbeat is too fast or whatever, like, so she had to turn it off, because and this wasn't even just at the Olympics, but just in general in competition, because she is so calm, cool, and collected. But I know that she is underneath it all, having her own, you know, mini panic attacks too, because she said she had to, you know, turn that watch off so it would stop warning her that her heartbeat was going too fast. So she's human too.
Yes. I mean, that is so interesting, because on the outside you would never know, but like this is experience. And also she's an Olympian. She's literally been in the same, I mean, no one's been in the same situation as Simone, but you know, she's been there on the floor. So I love that.
Yeah.
We had another question. Lord Waffles.
Any footage of Simone getting her dog in trouble? I know leading up to the Olympics, she posted about her dog having oopsies.
Yeah, her dogs, well, you know, so they have the 3 dogs now, and I love her dogs, all of them. But Rambo, her younger one, and then Jonathan's dog play really rough together. And to the point where like they are just like constantly at each other. So they had to go and go through some training and get retrained a little bit. And now they're awesome and everyone's good. And there's like total dog harmony and everyone's cool. I think they're up in Chicago with Jonathan right now. So, yeah, they're fun though. Lilo, obviously Lilo's the OG. So I love Lilo.
Lilo is the OG. Go ahead.
I have a final question. Time. So Simone's been asked a lot the last few weeks about continuing to 2028. Do you think her intent will be to continue and compete in 2028?
The $1 million
yeah.
question.
Speaking of Simone faces, she had a great interview with Scott that he posted today where he asked her that question and she's like, Scott.
Oh, I need to check that out. You know, I've sort of changed how I've felt about this multiple times. In the beginning of filming this project, I was very much on Simone will be in the LA Olympics train, to the point where I was like, Simone, I will come, I will babysit for you so you can go win all the gold medals, like no problem. And then, you know, in the last couple months, I've been like, you know, maybe not. I mean, she she's done everything. She's done so much. Like, she's like, you know, it's not like she has, I mean, even before this Olympics, she didn't have anything to prove, but especially now, like, she's checked all those boxes and she has so many things in her life to look forward to. I mean, she's so talented and smart, and I have no doubt that whatever she puts her energy into is going to be successful. So, you know, I've started to sort of lean in the maybe not direction, but then again, you know, she is such a great competitor, and there's no reason. I mean, you and I both know, we all know that if she decides to do it, she's going to do it and come back and win a bunch of medals. And it's just not even like a thing. So, you know, maybe in 2 years she'll feel differently. You know, I think you need enough, there needs to be some time and there needs to be some space for her to see how she feels about her role in the sport and where it needs to be. But, yeah, so I guess the short answer is I have no freaking clue.
We all have to say, I don't know.
I do want to just point out, before some tabloid picks this up later and is like, babysitting, she's pregnant. No, she is not pregnant. No. That is just, she has 3 dogs who need babysitting. It was a joke. Yes, it is not. No.
100% not true. Yes. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Yes, right. It is a hypothetical.
Let's keep it all safe. It's a safe space.
Exactly.
Scott would like to clarify. I didn't ask her that question. I asked her a question about U.S. gymnastics history. Yeah, you asked her, no U.S. gymnast has ever gone to 4 Olympics. Are you going to? That's the same question.
Scott also doesn't want to be picked up by a tabloid like Spencer and misquoted. So
it happens. It definitely happens. And then that's how you see, like, with Simone. I mean, and I think that's what makes her so, you know, it makes it so remarkable how honest she is, because you know, people do pick up stuff. I mean, I've been doing interviews for the film and I'll see the headline and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't say that. And, you know, it's like one little bit that they take and kind of put there. So, you know, and the fact that she has been so honest and was so just herself in this film is something that I'm so grateful to her for. Throughout this process. I mean, she did not edit herself either when we were filming or after. And so, you know, we all win from that because we get to see this amazing person and all sides of her. And yeah, she was a dream. So it was a great project. I'm happy and sad it's over. It's very bittersweet.
I know that we were talking before about how you're always our most prepared guest. Allie Raisman is tied for you as most prepared when she comes on. But you listened to the episode on Monday and made your own notes.
Of course.
So, as you do because you're a listener, is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to comment, clarify?
Looking at my notes now. So we did social media, we did hotel room, Cecile reaction, that watch. Oh, Allie and Lori, Simone, like on the bed, sleepover, room service. So that was
that's its own documentary.
That's its own documentary. It totally could be. That is a part that I could, you know, there's always so much more you can put in there from that. But they were all doing an event together in November. And I went and met up with them. And the same day that the room service on the bed scene is the exact same day that Simone and Simone and Allie are getting ready. And there's like a makeup scene that you see in episode 2. So we like used it. They were very similar because it was kind of like the same kind of vibe. And we almost had to, you sometimes have to pick a little bit because if they have the same sentiments in them and the same storylines, you can't show everything. So the makeup scene was the one that we went with because it felt like it really established their friendship and was just like a fun moment. And so I really liked that. But we did squeak in a little bit of that, like I call it the sleepover scene. They weren't having a sleepover. This is how I called it, where they were having room service. That was like after the event. They came back to Simone's room and had room service. And we used a little bit of that. But that was all from the same day. So, which was in November of last year. So, you know, it shows their relationship and their friendship, but from a storyline perspective, you know, using that, they weren't obviously able to, it was filmed in November of last year. So it's not like it's necessarily speaking to trials or something that was present day. So that's that. Let's see, what else do I have here? Yes, the injury. I wrote injury between champs and trials. It was the week between championships and trials where she tore that calf. I didn't know about it until trials, and it just made it so much more relevant when we saw all these other amazing athletes having to withdraw from competition. And I knew it was getting in Simone's head. I could tell in Cecile's interview from the trials, like I could just tell it was like weighing heavy on them all. And that's when Simone had that heating pad on her calf, and she was just thinking about it. And so it was part of the story, you know, not just because it's a part of what was happening in the event, which obviously it was, but also it was how it was like relating to Simone and impacting her and her just like mental health in those moments. You know, because I think it's only natural that everyone out there was probably thinking, am I next? You know, and knowing that Simone had just had this tear and that she also had this knee thing that was kind of going on. Like it just felt like really real and tangible when you see athletes, especially athletes that you think are going to make the Olympic team with you, having to withdraw. So that this felt like an important, you know, conversation to be had. And it obviously worked well in 3 when we're also talking about age and just like the sort of how your body is, you know, reacting to, you know, putting it through such a strenuous workout, you know, for the 25th year in a row. So yeah. And let's see, my last couple notes. I will do an MTV Cribs of Simone's new house. It's funny. I actually did ask her when we were back there in that last time. I was like, do you have ladders built in or anything? Because the cabinets go, like the ceilings are really high and the cabinets go way up. And there was like, and she was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know who's going up. She's there. Like,
I'm a gymnast. I'll just climb up there.
Climb up them, and I don't know, you know, I'm sure they'll sort it all out as they move in. But yeah, it's a beautiful house, and I'm excited for that next step for them. And yeah, it's coming together. So it's looking really good. I know there's gonna be a trampoline, there's gonna be things. So yes. So hopefully we can do a tour of the house when they're actually moved in.
Yay! Oh my God, I'm so excited for that. You're making all of our dreams come true, Katie. Yay! Oh my God, that's so excellent. Okay, thank you for spending so much time with us.
Of course.
And for doing this.
My favorites.
Yay! We really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity also to talk about Simone, because it's my favorite thing to do, and talk about how you don't have to quit when you're a teenager in gymnastics. So just thank you again for.
Well, I'm so grateful to you for all of your time and, you know, just your extreme expertise, and to your Spencer for all the notes, because both Jessica and I, we had those printed out. We were looking at them. We were making sure we were fact checking ourselves. Like there was not a moment where we weren't talking about you during that interview. So, but yeah, I mean, you were the thread, especially in episode 3, of bringing that whole conversation about age and, you know, why it was relevant and why we were talking about it. So couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're going to stay and talk about some other gym nerdy stuff, but I'll let you go. Thank you for spending so much time with us. I really, really appreciate it.
Always my pleasure. I will listen to you guys next week. Have a nice trip.
All right. Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Bye.
Next week is the GymCastic Hall of Shame commentary edition. Thanks for listening, and remember to take off on gay, split on rights, and we'll see you next week.